Alrighty, so I'm going to try something very new today. So, I've been studying a lot of business principles, business philosophy, and I've been coming up with some of my own ideas. And for the last couple of years, since 2021, I've been an originating sales manager. So I don't just originate my own loans, which you well know that I do that, but I also assist a team of loan officers, about 7 loan officers right now, in kind of becoming the best version of themselves. So I've been studying a lot of business principles and philosophies and formulating some of my own ideas. And I wanted to put together a series of videos, what I'm calling tongue in cheek here, Aristotle's Musings. And it'll make a little bit more sense when I give you some of the context. And that's really the purpose of this one video, is to explain a little bit more about my journey. We all have our own lens that we kind of view things through. We all have our own history that kind of informs our core values and principles and beliefs. And I feel like context is king with regards to literally everything, especially when it comes to what drives you. So, coming up with a series of videos, they're going to be talking about the why, kind of the core ideologies of your business, your brand, some of the finer pieces of that, which is like your dark why, like what motivates you when nothing else can, staying energized. And then we're going to talk about the how, building out those systems and processes, becoming very obsessed with minutia, very small changes to your business practices. And then finally, talking about the who, like if you're trying to build a team, how do you go about doing that? So lots of different videos, lots of different topics that we're going to be getting into. But before I do any of that, I want to give a little bit more context on myself, who I am, my personal journey, and then kind of go from there. So I have 4 siblings. My parents were both very industrious people. My dad came he lived in South Dakota. He was born and raised on a farm, quite literally. He spent his entire childhood just doing farm work. So very, hardworking, blue collar individual. My mom came from a working class blue collar family. So 2 very industrious parents that I had, 2 very hard workers. And it definitely, honestly, came and bled onto all of the Staufer children. We're all very much wired the exact same way. We're all very hard workers. I remember I had to go get like a special permit to be able to get my first job because I was too young. They wouldn't let me work unless I got school's permission to do so. So I've worked in food service. I worked as a sub for Subway. I worked as a sandwich artist. I worked as a barista for Starbucks. At one point, I was operating a landscaping lawn mowing company with my brother. I was in the real estate industry rather early on, which I'll talk about as well. And then obviously my mortgage career as well. So as a child, the chapters of my childhood could really be broken up into where did I live? Because we moved around so much. My dad was first in the military, and then he got into pharmaceutical sales. And so we were constantly moving to different bases prior to me being born. And then after that, I was really chasing down promotions, new opportunities with regards to pharmaceutical sales and management there. So I was born in Montana. I lived in Wisconsin. After that, we moved to Evergreen, Colorado, which is what I would consider my sandlot home. The house you got into all those shenanigans, all those memories and trouble that you got into, that was definitely Evergreen. Moved to Colorado Springs, and then I joke that I did a stint in Florida. And honestly, most of it wasn't necessarily Florida's fault. The reason I say stint in Florida, it wasn't the best of experiences, which you'll understand in a second here. But really, it was more the circumstances. So, as my dad was chasing down one job after another, he had the opportunity to go to Florida and bring a company public, from private to public. And he was kind of the scouting crew. Like he went down to Florida prior to my little sister, my mom, and myself moving out there. He went down first, got the house, got everything set up, started the job, and then we were set to move down. The day we moved down to join him, he got laid off. He walked into his CEO's office and he told the CEO, "Hey, look, I've got great news for you. In a couple of years, you're going to be profitable." And the CEO said, "I'm sorry, I have to be profitable right now. I have to let you go." So the day we moved down there, he got laid off. And meanwhile, my 3 older siblings were in college or living their life in Colorado. So moving that far away to begin with is kind of, traumatic. To lose your job the day that we landed there just absolutely soul crushing. And my parents did such a great job of trying to keep cooler heads and make it seem like everything was fine and good. But there was definitely an undercurrent of stress and anxiety. How could there not be? They spent the better part of a year trying to figure out a way to get back to Colorado. How do we get back to Colorado, join the rest of our family, get back to them? A couple good things did come from Florida, though, which is, one of the big takeaways that I had is, out of every bad scenario, there's some good things that come with it. And two things really came along with it. One was my parents' realization that if we ever want to have any autonomy, we cannot possibly be in the corporate industry. We have to get away. We have to break away. We cannot be at the mercy, at the whim of a corporation or somebody else. We have to control our own fate. So that was one big realization that they had. The second thing was my parents, one of their ways of coping with all of this for the kids, my little sister and myself, was trying to come up with ritual distractions. I don't know how else to say it other than ritual distractions. And one thing that they did was they would take us to the ocean, the beach, every single weekend. Without fail, every single weekend we would go to the beach. And I would literally spend my mornings and my afternoons snorkeling and joining schools of fish. We had one resident barracuda who I would always kind of play chicken with and see how close I could get to it before he would inevitably win the staring contest and I would swim away. It was just a wonderful time. Florida as a whole, not my favorite thing, but again, it could just as much be circumstances as anything else because, like I said, there was that kind of undercurrent of stress and anxiety. So as early as my parents could figure out a way to get out of Florida, we moved back to Colorado. We settled in the Boulder County area in 2000. My mom immediately went into real estate. She started her own career in real estate. And my dad was still doing pharmaceutical sales to keep the lights on, but with the intention of, as soon as it was a viable business, hopping into real estate and joining my mom. And it turned out to work really, really, really well. They, oddly enough, and you don't typically think about having, self-employment be, a crystallizing, solidifying, stabilizing feature. But it definitely was that for us. Once we set down roots in Boulder County in 2000, we stopped moving. High school was pretty normal for me. And then once I was ready to go off to college, I had a big decision to make. I loved biology and I fell in love with the ocean when we were in Florida. And my initial instinct was to go into marine sciences. Shockingly, though, Colorado does not have very good marine science programs. I'm not sure exactly why that's the case. Something about being landlocked and surrounded by mountains. So, brilliant idea. Okay, great. I'm going to go to CU for a couple of years, get all those core classes, get all that stuff going. And then at the end of my sophomore year, I'll transition to Hawaii. I'll go to Hawaii. CU has an agreement with University of Hawaii, I think it was Hilo at the time, where you could get discounted tuition. Go to University of Hawaii Hilo, finish off my degree, get my degree in marine sciences, and live on a boat doing research for the rest of my life. That was 100% my intention. And as you can tell, I'm not currently in the middle of the ocean. I am still living in Boulder County. So that plan did not come to fruition. At the end of my sophomore year, I realized I can't move. I don't know if it was because I moved around so much as a kid that once I set down roots, they were really deep, or if it was simply the fact that all my friends, my family, they were all very close and near and dear, and I couldn't possibly move. So I changed my plans and I said, all right, what do I love as much as I love biology? And I stumbled across philosophy. And I ended up getting my major, my bachelor's degree in philosophy. I ended up minoring in biology because I had enough kind of credits for that anyways at the time. So got my degree in philosophy, minored in biology, all with the intention of joining my parents in their business. I grew up in the real estate business. I listened to all the conversations and negotiations that were occurring. I worked their front desk as an administrative assistant. I used to actually help them farm. We would actually get together the real estate marketing material and we drop it off every single month around Rock Creek in Superior, and we would farm. We would literally every single Saturday morning or once a month at least drop off this marketing material. Rain, snow, did not matter. We were out there dropping off this marketing material. And that was one way that I kind of, paid for some of those high school expenses. So I grew up in the business. I knew it was a solid business. I knew that if you were a hard worker, you could really make it work for you. And again, all of us Staufer children ended up being really hard workers. So I thought it was going to be a really great opportunity. Fast forward to 2008 when I graduated. 2008, what happened then? Oh yes, the Great Recession. Housing bubble popped. Nobody was buying homes. Stayed the course, stayed with my plan. I immediately went out and got my real estate license. It took me a couple months, and I remember thinking, there's only a couple people in this course. I wonder why that's the case. Well, it's because the sky was literally falling with regards to the housing market. Uh, it was very, very tough. I got into property management. I got into being a buyer's agent and showing properties. Over the course of 1 year, I did actually sell two properties. Woohoo! Unfortunately, add those two sales prices up together, they did not equal $200,000. I calculated how much I was making, and it started with a decimal point, which is never good. It's never a good sign when your hourly wage starts with a decimal point. So after a year of that, hard nosed, hardworking Aaron was like, all right, what do I do next? I was actually about to join the military. I was regularly going to the recruiting office in Boulder, the Marines office, and I was looking at the going the officer route because I had my bachelor's degree, and I was told at the time, if you don't go for an officer position, if you have a bachelor's degree, you're kind of defeating the whole purpose of it, is what I was told by the recruiter. Problem is, and this is where it kind of gets a little bit more interesting. On my way to school one day in college, I got hit by a car while I was riding my skateboard. Got hit by a car, and I herniated a disc in my back. So I had back surgery. I had a discectomy, still have chronic back pain to this day, but I had a discectomy. And the recruiter, when I was trying to get join the military years later, they were really struggling to figure out a way to get me to pass the physical, the Marine physical, but that was going to have to get put through, to the extent that I was in the recruiter's office and I had my shirt up, and they were looking at my scar, and they were trying to figure out if they could hide the scar. Trying to figure out if they could hide the scar from when I went to, so that when I went and did my physical, I could maybe get in under the radar. They reviewed all my x-rays and my MRIs. It did not matter that I had a surgically repaired back. They were very, very, very nervous. And it delayed those entrance exams to the point where I actually got recruited into lending. And that's where I am to this day. Now, one of those side hustles I was doing as I was just trying to keep the lights on for a year, in addition to everything else I was doing, was I was house sitting, I was pet sitting. And I happened to be house sitting and pet sitting for my now still manager. He went out of town, this pregnant wife, and I was taking care of their townhome and their bulldog and their cat. And when he came back, I knew when they were coming back. I knew when the trash day was, so I took the trash actually out to the curb, and then I went a step further, and I remember hearing that, oh, if you're pregnant, you can't clean out cat box because you can get sick. So I cleaned out the cat box. I made their bed. I took out the trash, like I said, to the curb. What I would typically consider like normal, housekeeping behavior. But when he came home, he thanked his wife for taking out the trash, and she's like, "I didn't take out the trash. Aaron took out the trash." And he's like, "I have to hire this guy." So he called me on Wednesday. I was set to go down to the office in Denver to take my military physical on Friday. And he called me on Wednesday with a job offer to become his assistant. And that was in 2009. So I was his assistant for 4 years. I actually called the recruiter up and I said, "Hey, should I take this job or not?" He's like, "Definitely take the job. It was very unlikely that you were going to get in the military anyways with your back history. So take the job, run with it. Congratulations. Good luck." So I took the job. I was his assistant for 4 years. In 2013, I started becoming an originator myself. I learned from the best. I've had wonderful opportunities, wonderful training opportunities. And this job can be very rewarding if you are a hard worker. And it just so happened to be that I was. So things kind of took off very quickly. I started becoming one of the top 5 lenders in the state. One of the top couple hundred originators in the entire country. Thank you to all my referral partners for all that. Really, really appreciate you. And, it really was the best of both worlds. My dad always said that success exists at the intersection of hard work and opportunity. It just so happened that those happened to intersect for me. I was a hard worker. I had a great opportunity to learn from the best in the business. I ended up at a great organization, Elevations Credit Union, and it's turned out really, really well. So began to be a originator in 2013. And then in 2021, I was asked to become a sales manager. So I still originate my own loans as well, but I also teach and coach a panel of loan officers, some of the best in the business, of how to be the best version of themselves as well. And that's kind of my story. And that's kind of informs some of what you're going to see from me, which is a philosophical tilt in some arenas, a biological tilt in some other arenas, and just generally a little bit of history about me and how I came to, stumble across this. most people, most real estate agents, most lenders, they don't go into the professional world with the idea of, hey, I want to get into these industries. Almost everybody you interview, they're like, oh yeah, no, I stumbled across it this way, or I came across it this way. There's very few that were born and bred into the business. So it's very unique. I always like to hear about people's stories and how they got into the business. So that's a little bit about me. That is a little bit about what we're looking to do. A couple different philosophies. If nothing else, you'll get some very good suggestions for books. Yeah, I hope it is helpful. I hope it's useful. And yeah, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, let me know. But upwards and onwards, on to the actual content. Appreciate it. Thanks.